Thank you for joining for our second NFP webinar, Maximizing Value Beyond AI Pilots. So I'm the National Solutions Advisor for Data and AI at CBS, and we got Chris here, our National Solutions Advisor for Security and Governance. And we also have Javi from Microsoft, also going to cover parts for the first part of this webinar. And let's get cracking. So the agenda today, as I mentioned, Javi will cover state of AI from Microsoft, and then we'll cover on who we are, and then dig into what an AI-powered organization is and how to maximize value. And then we'll focus on staff productivity as well as business productivity. So how to how when you do our production solutions, how to get the maximum out of it. Okay, so just a couple of housekeeping things. Mics will be muted and the session will be recorded. We'll send it to you, but feel free to add any questions in the chat, and we will have some polls as well, so you can participate and get your views across as well.
What have you been seeing in terms of AI in the non-for-profit space?
I think we have a section to cover this, but I'll just give a bit of a highlight. Yeah, what we're seeing is organizations who are doing experiments or things like rolling out, small, groups, co-pilot into small groups, now starting to look at agents, or you have been experimenting with AI agents, now looking at how can we really deliver value from AI. So it was mainly like experimentations, kind of a stage last year. Now we're seeing, it's more like, it's part of the strategy. It's an active thing, organizations are working on. And I've seen, we had a number of strategic reviews the beginning of this year with lots of our customers. And then we are seeing that, there's clear initiatives to look at AI and see how we can add value to the staff, individual productivity, as well as business functions as well. We'll jump on who we are. So CBS, we provide end-to-end solutions from a professional services covering areas like cloud, applications, security, data and AI, business processes, and business services. For managed services, professional services. We have a number of designations, specific Microsoft designations, especially in security and specializations in security as well. And then in Australia, number of verticals, including government, financial, as well as not-for-profit as well. There's lots of logos in here. And then also a good footprint in New Zealand as well. And I was recently at the CIO Summit in New Zealand, and there's a lot of insights that came across from that as well. So, vision of an AI-powered organization. So we covered this in the last webinar, but I want to touch on this. What does that look like? So at CBS, we promote a human-centered AI approach where we are using AI to amplify and augment human capabilities. So it's basically combining human and AI to deliver value and outcome. And we think that a model works really well, especially in the not-for-profit area. And what does that look like from an organization point of view? So what we're seeing from an organization point of view, the technical part, delivering an agent or a co-pilot is a small part of a successful AI rollout. You need to have a strategy. You need to have your policies and standards. So what is your AI policy? What are your operating standards associated with that? And then things like literacy and training is really important. And there are a couple of slides covering why that's important to maximizing your value, not just for the projects that you're doing, but the projects that are coming up. And then around organization change management, how do we let everyone know? How do we inform? How do we educate? How do we roll out these solutions by getting everyone involved? So it's supported and it's adopted. And of course, tools, systems, data, and processes is a key part of that as well. Over to you, Chris, to talk about the security side of things.
Yeah, so as we know, security is front and center to every conversation today. AI has now just amplified that and brought that to, I guess, to another level, which puts our teams under immense risk. But also, we don't want to, I guess, we want to seize the opportunity of what AI can bring to a business, and we don't want security, I guess, putting the handbrakes on those sorts of capabilities. So for us, it's all about having your policies in place and making sure you're assessing environments first. understanding your gaps and identifying that remediation. And if we look at AI now, data processing information is now not just traveling from north to south, east to west, it's going everywhere, and we're connecting from systems to systems. So when we look at security now, security is not just focused on the organization, it's everything that comes around that. As the AI journey continues, we have to continuously uplift our designs and our roadmaps to support these AI initiatives. A CEO may come in for a business idea. We have to ensure as IT professionals in the IT organization that we're supporting these initiatives, that we're not exposing our businesses and putting people's data at risk. And then we need to manage these services as they go forward as well. AI is not just something that you build once and then let go. It has a continuation of management. Now, the reason why this is a circular motion is because this has to be continuous. We don't want to be checking one thing on day one and then looking at 365 days later. We have to continuously look at how AI and how the data is changing, and we have to continuously check and ensure that our systems and processes are looking at these areas. And then we are looking at this at 24/7. Now, the good thing is, being humans, we've now got technology to support us, and AI is front and center when it comes to security. So although we're looking at 24/7 here, it doesn't mean a person needs to be monitoring 24/7. We can now use AI agents from a security perspective to monitor and help triage and build those servicing into our capabilities to ensure that the humans are focusing on the work that they should be focusing on, which is the actual high fidelity, high impact work that we are. So as much as we look at business, AI and operations from a productivity point of view, AI has the same impacts when it comes to security, in particular security operations.
Excellent. And on top of that, one of the key aspects is responsible use of AI. So we talked about privacy, security, but the other things like fairness, transparency, accountability, and inclusiveness is very important, especially in the not-for-profit areas. So that all our solutions are built around this framework, and it's a common framework, and it's really important to understand the aspects of it and how each tool contributes and how you have capability within those tools to do that. I would like to give a little bit of a snapshot. The last year and a half had over 20 AI accelerator sessions. We had lots of roundtables and conferences, lots of customer engagement, especially around NFPs as well. So a couple of things that are coming around. Microsoft 365 Copilot, which is the paid version. Last year, mainly small rollouts, now wider rollout. Some organizations are trying to roll out to the entire organization. So that's the change we're seeing. Copilot Chat, which is underused, which is the free version of enterprise chat that comes with your E3 licensing. It's highly underused. We're seeing lots of organizations adopting that, and we'll cover a little bit more on why that's important. Your M365 environment, not ideally set up, so we have offerings to help with that, especially around the security side of things. We're seeing organizations try to build or deploy pilots or proof of concept around, especially on the knowledge retrieval agents. So basically IT support, contract search, or that kind of agent that we have also built for customers. We're also seeing organizations trying to get their data estate in order, exploring Fabric or migrating to Fabric, and then concerns about total cost of ownership and unclear about ROI. And there's a number of things that we'll cover a little bit later on there. So this is kind of view around what we've seen in the market. And just from a research point of view, what we are also seeing is that, organizations are going through what's called an AI reset. There's an article, we'll send that article out to everyone as well. Around the early experimentations hasn't really given the business value. So it's about looking at what you have right now, taking stock on where you are, because things have changed. So some of those use cases that were not really relevant may come into the picture now. So doing that reset is really important, and to really understand that risk aspect that Chris talked about, and then also, is it going to give you the return on investment? So that piece is really important. So a lot of organizations are going through an AI reset, and we recommend you do that as well. Okay, so from an organization point of view, there are two areas you can focus on. So you can focus on staff productivity, how AI can impact staff productivity, which is your Copilot, your agents that are individuals, that are focused on individuals. Then there's business productivity, where you're looking at business processes, business flows, not just what you have right now, but looking at new business, new opportunities that you can use AI for. So those are the two areas we'll cover as well.
My name's Javiera or Javi. I am a partner solution sales manager for our security practice within Microsoft Elevate. Very quickly, just Microsoft Elevate is a industry-focused organization within Microsoft that supports not-for-profit organizations as well as K-12 education institutions. And we are a proud partner of Canon Business Services. But one of the things that I very quickly wanted to highlight, and Raji, it really flows into what you were just talking about in terms of AI and the usage within, especially within our industry sort of vertical, that for us, it's very important for organizations to utilize AI, but especially within the communities of not-for-profit sort of sectors, because we want to make sure that technology can only enable the things and the people that use it, but it's how they use it, and it's the skilling, and it's about the making sure the utilization of these types of tools are going to be key to the success of your pilots, of your programs, of any sort of transformation that your businesses are going through. But more importantly than that is ensuring that you lean in with a security mindset first, making sure that your data is up to date, your governance estate is ready to go, because as we know, yes, we have a external, obviously, threats coming into our organizations, but even internally, just through a little bit of complacency and not having our data estate secure and things set up appropriately, unfortunately, our people can actually get access to information that they shouldn't, or accidentally do things with that information. So the three things that I'll leave with you is, one, definitely on making sure that security is your number one sort of priority, and making sure that you're working with partners like CBS to make sure that you think about that first and you get your data sort of ready so that you can then use the magnificence of what AI and agentic AI is, but making sure that you obviously, from a utilization perspective, you have the understanding and the knowledge from a skilling perspective, as well as if you don't use the tools, you're not going to get the outcomes from a productivity perspective, from a, enabling the incredible work that not-for-profit organizations are actually doing for our communities. So that's the three things that I'm going to leave you with. But yes, please make note that CBS as a partner obviously is doing this day in, day out, utilizing obviously the Microsoft technology and the platforms. And please do note that with not-for-profit and K-12 education institutions, we do have discounted licensing and things like that for you to be able to utilize these tools to enable success and deliver on the impact that your organizations are trying to drive.
Excellent. Thank you so much. I'm glad you were able to get back online. That's excellent. Harvey touched on a very important point around the education piece, the literacy piece. So there's a recent RMIT study done, and according to that study, about 7% of users are advanced AI users, but the more alarming fact is that 54% of users are beginner users. So it's really important to understand what that means, not just when you're rolling out, it's not about rolling out chat or anything like that, but it's about when you're rolling out anything to do with AI, if your user base, majority of your user base, they're beginner users, don't even know how to do some basic prompts or haven't even used any of those technologies, it's going to be very challenging to roll out any AI solution. So this is a key aspect you need to address. So we got our second poll, but we probably will go through the past that because we are having issues with polling as well. All right. So how do we take this journey? So especially to address that, what we touched on earlier, 54% of users are beginner users of AI in Australia. So what I suggest is, which we are seeing a lot of organizations doing, is rolling out Copilot Chat, which comes with your E3 license, E3 or above licenses to all users, and then build those literacy programs around it. We do have, CBS has training associated with that as well, which is tailored to your organization, but that will get your large staff base used to using AI in the corporate context. Then for advanced users, you can roll out your paid version of Copilot. I know there are some licensing changes coming up as well. Then we suggest working on agents, because if your organization is not used to using agents, then you're going to have a challenge around rolling out those solutions. So I think we happen. Just bear with me. Okay, cool. Okay. So, and the other thing we would like to make is that the rollout agents internally first before you're rolling out external to customer-facing agents. So it's really important to do that first to maximize the value. So get your organization used to using AI agents and internally first, then rolling out externally. So I might hand over to Chris here to talk a little bit about how you would deploy corporate chat in a more secure way.
Thank you. Thanks, Raji. Please, any questions that anyone has, please post them in the chat. So look, obviously when we're deploying these sorts of capabilities, we do need to look at things from a risk point of view. So the AI policy that we define upfront effectively governs what we need to sort of be looking towards in terms of creating, I guess, a safe and secure way of deploying AI. There's also training that we need to roll out for our users as well. AI is a different way of, I guess, doing our work today, and there's becomes different risks and associated areas. So before we go into any sort of deployment, we have to first and foremost ensure that we have a policy set, and we can base it on an existing framework that's out there in the marketplace, or there could be one that's specific to your industry that we need to look towards doing that. So that's definitely an area. We should also be looking at security assessments across the entire ecosystem to ensure that we have the necessary controls and guardrails in place to deploy these technologies. Again, we have great ideas from an AI perspective. It'll be a business idea, but we always need to look at, what are the, I guess, the challenges that may be, presented from deploying AI. An example could be a payroll app. For example, we don't want users being able to research anyone's pay or the CEO's pay and then accessing that information across the wider thing. So having your data in place, having the policy set in place, and ensuring that we have those guardrails in place is super important. But also the guardrails that enables people to do things or enables security operations people to respond effectively and understand where that's going in there as well. And then education and training as well. So we have our policies, we've educated the people around policies, but now once we've deployed the tool, we have to ensure that we're training staff to do that. Now, depending on what generation we're in, there's now 5 generations of workers sitting within most organizations. Training's going to be different to many different people. So we have to ensure that we cater the training to ensure adoption and also to make people feel comfortable that this tool, is not going to take their job away. It's going to enhance their experience. It's going to actually make it more productive in that area. And these are just some of the things that we have to focus on. But back to what Javiera was saying before, security is first and foremost at the front of every conversation that we do have, and everything should be secure by design. However, security should not take away from the experience of what these great capabilities do. So as long as we're embedding that security first culture within our organizations, these tools can be deployed safely, securely, and ensure that we're protecting our organizations and our data from that perspective.
Excellent. Thanks for that, Chris. So now we talked about staff productivity, and we looked at how you can roll out Copilot chat and get your staff using AI. And then, it's a really good way of introducing agents after that. So if you don't do that initial part, it's going to be very challenging for a staff to use those agents successfully and to drive adoption. So from a business point of view, so we know that things like ChatGPT and public LLMs have data leakage and privacy, and Chris talked a lot about that. And then, of course, if you roll out Copilot, the paid version, it does have access to what you have access to within your organization, but there could be challenges like oversharing and quality. So, but then there are use cases where how can we address specific business functions? So not just staff productivity, but specific business functions. So things like knowledge management, question and answer, IT support, policy and compliance. So there's a lot of use cases that we are seeing from a customer point of view, specific business cases. It could be, how you are responding to customer queries. It could be how you are classifying those queries. It could be, HR policies you need to review. It could be a work flow. So that's where the business functions AI can have real value. So we're not going to do this poll again. We're going to go through the next section. So use cases. So from a lot of sessions from customers, everyone looked at their use case last year and maybe looked at specific use cases and deployed them maybe, or done POCs or pilots associated with that. But now it's about time to reassess it. Why you need to reassess it? Things have changed. Things are changing. Some of those models of pricing may have changed. Some of those business cases that thought were too costly may be cost effective now. And some of those things that you thought they were going to give you ROI may not be anymore. So assess like a portfolio, categorize them into what's going to give you value and what's going to need to go or needs to be reassessed, and really get hold of cost and spend. And because that's one of the biggest challenges going forward. It's great to have a nice chatbot doing things or giving you responses. Is it really going to give you value? Design for adoption, and then think about agents where you can embed into workflows with guardrails. This is an example of a very simple example of spreadsheet that you can use to assess. So basically, whether it's internal, external, what is your priority, whether you have the data available, is it urgent, is it value? So something like this, there are a number of these available. It's be really good to just initially assess your use cases and see if they're the right ones to choose. Okay. Now I'm going to hand over to Chris to talk a little bit around the governance side.
We'll pause for a second. We do have a question from Lauren. So
yes,
I'll pass on this to you, Raji. What is the recommended approach to getting to setting up guardrails for Copilot chat, i.e. AI config, policy, etc.? Who should the business owner be for this?
Okay, good question. So we actually have an engagement that helps organizations review what they have, because Copilot settings are in a number of different places within your M365 environment. So that's more like a deeper conversation. Happy to have a chat around that. We have an offer specific around enabling the right settings, the right guardrails, just to, if you are rolling out Copilot chat, and things like, do you want to enable personal agents and lots of different settings, and not just that from a consumption point of view as well, if you want to build capabilities. Service owner, look, typically it comes from IT services who owns M365 environment, but because if you are rolling this out on a wider scale, but you need to get governance and also even HR involved in some of these capabilities, because we are putting the power to the users. So happy to chat about it. We have a specific offer help you roll out Copilot chat safely, including the literacy piece.
Great question. Thank you for that. So Microsoft Purview is a great AI governance layer, and which can help with a few different categories. It can help with your Copilot experiences, whether it's Microsoft 365 Copilot, Copilot Chat, as well as the Studio agents. It can also cover your enterprise AI apps, the non-Copilot AI apps, anything that's formed within an application in that specific area. We can start to get visibility, and then third-party AI tools. So we mentioned ChatGPT, Claude, etc. As we start to implement AI and introduce AI, visibility becomes a very much an issue within any organization. And now we're seeing the emergence of shadow AI. We've seen shadow cloud, shadow insert, tech sector here. AI is just a bigger phenomenon. We need to ensure that we've got visibility to ensure that, number one, are these apps approved, and are they sanctioned correctly, and are they configured correctly to be able to get that? The only way you can do that is by putting a layer in place and apply your policy to ensure that we are capturing this information. Then if we look from a capabilities point of view, we want to make sure that we're discovering the usage. Also, we want to make sure that any AI application that we are deploying is being used to its full potential, and that it's getting its full use case out of it. Then from a security standpoint as well, we need to ensure that whatever policy has been set is being enforced across the board, or if there are any challenges from a security perspective, we are seeing those come in. We are now seeing the emergence of AI vulnerabilities coming to the picture, or AI threats. So we are seeing risks and vulnerabilities coming not at slow and slow burn stage. We're now seeing high, rapid adoption, and it's the cyber criminals that are using AI to fight the AI. So we need the right technology and the right tools in place to be able to, number one, see what's happening out there, assess the risk, and ensure that we're driving, that we don't get compromised in that area. Now, we're always going to have risks within each environment, but it's making sure that we can quantify the severity of the risk. We may have a vulnerability within our environment, but the exposure is low, therefore we don't focus on that one. But we want to make sure that if we do see something that's high risk or high propensity of creating some problems, that we've got that visibility as well. And then sensitivity data reports is a huge one. You know, we have data across our entire environment ecosystem, so we need to make sure that we're protecting that information within our organizations. And if we are oversharing or have permissive access to data, we understand what that is. We've seen a lot of deployments now go into place where customers were not aware that certain people could access certain information. And now if we have AI now acting on behalf of a user, we have to ensure that their access is restricted to what it needs to access to. So the only way we can do this is by having, I guess, a governance layer in place, but we have to have the right policies, controls and mitigations in place in order to ensure that we're delivering a secure outcome to deliver AI business outcomes.
Yeah, that's great. And you know, just to extend on that one, you know, you don't have to start this journey, you know, deploy, you know, purview every single feature. You can run it in discovery mode and put some basic foundational policies in place, see what's happening in your organizations, how users are using Copilot Chat. Are they, you know, cutting and pasting stuff into chat windows, like, you know, the basically, you know, PII data, phone numbers, customer details, and, you know, all of those additional high-risk items into the chats that are internally used. And you can run a discovery first and see what's happening before you even lock down certain things. So, but at least at a minimum, you want to understand what's happening in your environment. So moving on. So now that, let's just say that you built agents and you want to roll it out. One of the typical tools that organizations will use is Copilot Studio, especially for agents. So, but you know, you need to treat those AI agents as software environments or software tools, right? Because you need to have release management. So dev, test, prod as a minimum. So you deploy to dev, make the changes, and then, you know, you to get users to test it and productionize it. You have to have that release management mentality, and Microsoft Power Platform provides that. And then also, how do you keep those updated when a new model comes, a new version, and the models get retired? How do you update your agents? And that's important to look at from a release management point of view when you're going into production. This is a big piece about cost management is another area. So in pilots and, you know, POCs, you're not going to get a good view of the usage, right? So you are now changing from a licensing model to a consumption-based model where you're counting tokens, right? So when you're designing, you need to have cost and efficiency in mind and put the appropriate guardrails to prevent cost overrun, because one user could blow out the entire credit consumption. So that, you know, you got the 7% of advanced users, and they could pretty much, you know, take your entire consumption workload, right? So it's really important to understand and put the right guardrails. Now in Copilot Studio and other tools, you can set up limits for business units, user groups, and things like that. So it's really important you set those and monitor them. And it's not about volume, it's about, can you get the return on investment? So, and also be aware, a lot of these cost models have changed. So deploy internally first. Why is it important? Because interacting with AI is different to what we are used to. We are used to clicking buttons, pulling down menus, typing into a form. But that's all changing. Now you're prompting, or you have to review AI output. So get your organization ready to do that internally first. And then also update your processes to embed AI in there, then roll out externally. And when you're rolling out externally, start with simple use cases. Make sure you think about the customer and make it invisible. So it could be that, you know, the website could have a question, a query, and that query comes in, and then AI reviews it, constructs a response and human reviews it just to make sure the AI response, then that goes to the customer. The customer doesn't even know that they're interacting or there's AI embedded in that. So reduce that friction and also provide alternatives. If you are putting a chatbot in your website or to a customer, if it doesn't work, what is a logical triage? What is the next step? Can they talk to a customer? Is there an FAQ they need to go look at? So to wrap up, we want to keep some time for any specific questions. So to wrap up, maximizing value when you're going from pilots and POCs to production. As Chris mentioned, make sure you have a policy, AI policy, as well as is it up to date and is it aligned with industry standards? So even if you have an AI policy, we're happy to review that for you, make sure it's aligned to your industry and latest policy that you need to align to. And Chris mentioned secure by design, integrated governance. So make sure you have the right foundations before you start. And there's add-on services like more advanced things you can do with Purview, but make sure you have the right foundations. What is your minimum security foundation before you can roll this out to your users and even to customers? So when you're rolling out to customers, it might be different level that you need to operate on. Cost management, which we talked about. So you are changing the model from a licensing to token-based consumption. So this is where your financial operators, like CFOs, will need to play a big part in that. Avoid bill shock, and deploy Copilot chat, which means an internal large language model, internal chat where it's secure, it's in your tenancy. So get your users accustomed to using AI within your enterprise, drive adoption before you give them AI agents to interact with. Because we have seen scenarios where you put agents in front of users where they interact with them using chat, but they don't even know how to do basic chat. They're not using on a day-to-day basis. So those projects will fail. They won't have the right adoption. We touched on training and education. So I think, Chris touched on, security is a continuous thing and learning is also a continuous thing, social learning, set up Teams channels to share good prompts or have a, once a month or session around lunch and learn, things like that. We have that internally in CBS as well. Ongoing education, prepare for ongoing education because the things are always changing. Release management, so when you're rolling out any agent or even chat, anything like that, treat it as a software release management. So you need to have development environments, and then you need to have test environments, you need to have production environments. How do you roll out changes? How do you communicate those changes? What happens if those changes don't work? How do you roll back? That's really important. Deploy internally first, so learn internally, adopt, refine, and then deploy externally last. Pick low risk, simple use cases. Make sure you have a human review process. So that's really important. Okay. So any other questions that you want to ask? So that's the end of the webinar. We got a couple of offers as well. Any specific questions that are coming through?
Not asking about the slides, but I do have a question for you, Raji.
Yeah.
If that's okay with you.
Yeah, please.
So when it comes to policy, I see this as one topic that either people have not thought about or people have gone a bit too extreme when it comes to AI policy. What's your view around AI policy and how should customers approach that?
Yeah, good question. So AI policy, you need to have a policy that gives you enough to ground as in enough to cover your bases, like, cover your core security functions, but not too restrictive to reduce your business productivity, right? Policies is, it's difficult to change because, you need to go through councils or, process to go through, change the policy if there's a new thing comes up. This is where you complement that with standards and procedures. So you have a policy aligned with industry standards, but then you have internal standards and procedures. How do you get approval to roll out an agent? Or what is the alternative? You're not supposed to use ChatGPT. What is the alternative? So that's really important, I think, have that balance.
Right. Any other questions from the crowd? And I do have a follow-up question, but I'll see what else the crowd's got to do here. What's the way? Cost management was one that you mentioned. What causes cost management, or what can create cost blowout when it does come to AI projects?
So there's two, if it's users interacting with AI, you are gonna get advanced users that use AI very regularly and very heavily. And it's really difficult to estimate what they're going to be. You know, if you cut and paste a document or you reference a document that's 400 pages, then each page might have, 200 to 500 tokens. You multiply, that's a lot of tokens. And then, you do that in one, and then if you do that multiple times, so individual users, one or two users could have really high usage, which is very common for advanced users. Then you have business processes. So when you have an agent, the context that you write, how the agent should behave is sent every time there's a request in a workflow. So if you don't understand that properly, if you're running those workflows on a repetitive basis, your cost could blow out. And also from a volume point of view. So for example, imagine that you have an agent that reviews customer requests coming through. Suddenly, there's an issue on a website, people are logging more requests coming through. Now your workflows are processing those requests really quickly, and your AI consumption will go up as well. So, but imagine, if you don't have the right guardrails, like, if it reaches 50%, generate an alert, 40%, that kind of thing. If you don't, you're going to get a very expensive bill.
Gotcha. Thank you for that. We do have a question.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on using a basic AI agent to help drive AI adoption, such as rolling out a policy agent to get a team member used to how to communicate with AI?
I think that's a great option. So start with a simple one first, and something like a policy agent to even HR policies. Like one of the examples was the other day, I want to find out whether when you're taking leave, if a family member is sick, can you take leave on behalf of family member or something like that? So that kind of thing was a little bit confusing. I had to go and look for AI, our HR policies. So that's a great way of having those policies and a simple agent that reviews those policies. The other thing you can do is think about, when you're getting those questions, think about like the top 5 questions you get. And then have pre-built prompts for that. For example, when you have your simple agent rolled out, you could have buttons, how to find out this, like 3 or 4 things that are pre-built prompts. They just can click the button and they don't even have to prompt. So it's a combination of what are the common queries. Somebody clicks a button, gets the answer straight away. And a simple agent is a very, very good way of getting your organization and the users starting their journey with AI.
Great. Thanks for the questions, Jacob. And thanks for the answers, Raji. Any other questions from this lovely crowd?
Excellent. So it looks like not many questions. So hopefully this session was useful. What I would like to say is we have 2 offers. At the moment, we do what's called AI accelerator sessions, which, as I mentioned, I've done about 20 of these. Now we're doing together, Chris and I do this together. So we cover not just the functionality, but also the security and the guardrails. So this is more like an executive session where we can come in and talk to your senior leadership and help you to transform your organization, look at top three use cases, or if you already have use cases, assess them, whether they are going to be production ready, how do you scale them, and around with governance and the guardrails in it. And then also have Ask Me Anything session. If you want to set up sessions with myself or Chris and ask anything specific, any questions, help you with some strategy, we can do that. And if you want any specific product knowledge, like you want to find out about how Copilot Studio works or Fabric, we can get the experts involved in that as well, especially around Purview. Purview is a pretty big topic. We can get someone to cover and give you how you can leverage benefits out of that. Okay. The other thing we have is free M365 security assessment. So we can assess your M365 environment against recognized security framework to give you a report that shows you where you need to focus on from a security point of view as well. It's a free assessment. I strongly encourage everyone to take it.
Can I just add to that as well, Raji? So although we do focus on obviously Microsoft M365 here, we can also extend the security assessment much wider to the environment as well. But this is a really good starting point, and this is where you can actually get a lot of good value and a lot of good wins to the business. However, when we're looking at security, we need to start at one point, and this is a fantastic way to start the assessment journey. But when we start to delve into these areas, we also like to broaden that conversation out to look at the wider, I guess, security stack and bring that all together as well and provide valuable outputs and guidance to, not just in one particular area, but to the entire ecosystem, but as well as your entire business. So although it's focused on M365, we have got great examples on customers taking us on a journey a lot wider to, to the broader security framework.
Excellent. So these are the QR codes to sign up for the sessions. Thank you so much. If there aren't any questions, you can send us any questions via email as well. But happy to set up a session. I strongly encourage set up Ask Me Anything sessions. If you are thinking about rolling out agents or you have rolled out, if you want to do an AI reset, or if you're thinking about your strategy and planning, and even assessment of existing use case, existing pilots you have, or even around literacy, we do really good sessions around Copilot chat. We can show you 3 or 4 prompts that will potentially save users 1 or 2 hours a day. So happy to engage you on any of those sessions, but please take use of those free sessions that we have for our customers. So anyway, thank you very much. Thanks, Chris, for chiming in and providing insights around the security and the governance piece. And we will send this deck out to everyone after that. And I also like to remind everyone, tomorrow we have a fireside chat as well. And you've seen our social, which is pretty much ask any question from us. And we will also answering some very tough questions, hopefully, from our audience.
Fantastic. Thanks, Raji. Thanks, everyone, for joining today. Enjoy your Tuesday. We'll send through the follow-up information and look forward to continuing this great conversation into the near future. Thank you all.
Thank you.